G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, I thought I might go through some very old footage. In fact, it dates back to October last year, when I was playing the Pakwagen. Now, the Pakwagen, for those of you who don't know, is essentially a Puma converted to a tank destroyer. They put a long 75 on it, and it is absolutely amazing. I would say, hands down, this is one of the best event tanks ever, apart from the Matilda, the Russian Matilda. And I would say that the way that we could earn this tank from participating in random battles and completing tasks was absolutely worth it as well. I feel like Gaijin had really got it right that year in 2017 with their events. They did a really good job of running those Chronicles events, or the winter and summer events. I feel like they haven't really nailed it this time with the Winter Chronicles, or the Summer Chronicles now for you guys. But regardless, I absolutely love the Puma. It's so good, in fact, that I play it at 3.7. I just think that it's so good, and the gun and the mobility is so good that it could probably even have a battle rating increase to 3.7. The gun is fantastic, the mobility is fantastic, and as you could see earlier, the survivability is fantastic, provided that you're not hit with a 75mm or above, because now the Pakwagen has hull break. But regardless, you could earn the Pakwagen by completing some tasks through random battles. I mentioned that just a couple of minutes ago. And I said that Gaijin had nailed it. Now, I don't particularly agree with the way that they're doing it currently with the Chronicles events. I don't really like the historical lineups. If you ever look back to history, it doesn't matter what point in history, whether it be the time of the ancient Greeks, with Leonidas and his 300 men versus the Persians, or modern day Operation Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. There is no level playing field in history, and as a result, it makes balancing these historical events very difficult. You tend to get one side which is favoured over the other, and that's just because one side is outright better than the other. That being, for example, there was an Operation Kursk event, and everyone literally just played Tigers and Panthers because that's what was available and that was the meta. It was easier to play the Germans than it was to play the Russians because you were stuck with KV-1s, T-34s, and you had to get really close to do any damage. Whereas the Germans could just sit back and relax and just pick them off as they came towards them. And whilst that was very historical, whilst that did happen in history, the way that it is implemented in a video game is not good for gameplay. It is quite the opposite. It detracts from the game, and it really takes away the fun, takes away the desire to grind, the desire to spend money. And that's why I feel like those historical events aren't really worth touching. I'm not going to grind out this event because I just cannot stand it. That, and I don't have time, but I really cannot stand the historical events. They're just so unbalanced, and they're just not fun. I would much rather do it this way, the way I got the Pakwagen, and do all of the tasks in random battles, where I can choose what plane, what tank I want to use. I can choose what game mode I want to use, and that's not decided by who wants to play the RB event, the AB event, or the Sim event. I'm not restricted to that. I'm restricted to the queue and random battles, which is much larger, and there's a much wider variety of vehicles to choose from for me to complete these tasks. And I feel like giving people that freedom is definitely an incentive to grind. It allows them to, or it gives them that incentive, it gives them that drive to grind because they can play with their favorite vehicle whilst grinding the event, not one that's preset by Gaijin. Regardless, we're going to take a look at the Pakwagen itself in this battle here on Cologne. I've just taken out a T-34. I'm going for the heavy flank, as you can see. I'm sort of around the houses close to the enemy spawn. I've bypassed the park. Don't want to get into that mess. I'll let the enemies get stuck into some allied tanks and some German tanks. And just watch the carnage. I'll sit behind them and shoot because I really don't want to get in front of their guns. If I can get around them, that's where I can do my most damage. And in this game, I get a really nice number of kills. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it is really, really nice. But as you can see, I'm just patrolling through, making sure there's no reinforcements for the enemy deep in their territory. So I've got to keep an eye out, looking on the rocks, on the piles of rubble to make sure there's no one camping there, making sure there are no SPAA heading back to the battlefield because I'm very, very easy pickings for SPAA. And it turns out there's nothing. So it seems like they've all pushed up really, really far towards the cap and just sort of gotten themselves stuck into the park, and that's where they're having a little brawl. That's really, really bad for my team because they're all German tanks, and brawling is not a German tank thing. German tanks rely on the sort of ambush or surprise attacks, sniping, flanking, and basically everything else but brawling. So I've really got to get in there quickly, get in there, help out, and just hurry up and make my damage. So I'm trying to kill this KV-1, and I bounced off his rear, which I've never done before. That's pretty much a first for me, and I was really, really surprised. It doesn't happen often, but that was a bit odd for me. So I use my mobility, get a better position, and take him out from there. Moving on to the main road, I see nothing to my right, and I noticed there was something behind these rocks. There he goes, disappearing around the corner just in time, using my mobility to try and push him. He doesn't see me. I check our connecting road, and I notice that there is a KV-1. Quick pop into his turret, take out the breach, disable him, prevent him from firing back. That's what I want to do. He's out in the open, so there's no real rush to prevent him from moving until he decides to run for cover. That's when I shoot his engine and look for another target because I know he can't fire. I see there's no one else, so I just decide to finish him. Quick check behind me, make sure there's no one coming up. So that gives me the ability to push around and save my friends. I see another KV-1, and I see some other enemy tanks in the park. Go for that M10 Achilles. Boom. Beautiful. 75mm does absolutely amazing work. There's a Gaz there. I decide to hit him. I managed to prevent him from moving by shooting, I think, his driver. And I also hit a Sherman behind him, and I get a really, really nice double kill here, which puts me on 7 kills. You can really, really make some damage work in this tank. You have the mobility, you have the rate of fire, you have the firepower. And even though I'm artificially up-tiered, my gun is still one of the best at the battle rating. So I can pretty much do whatever I want. I can pen frontally, pen from the side. I can pen most turret mantlets with the exception of the jumbo. And my team just needs to go in and cap for me. But I need to make sure that they are secure and their cap circle stays that way. Put a quick shot into this T-34, but unfortunately I get taken out from the side by a jumbo, and that's pretty much it for me. So ladies and gents, if you enjoyed, please type in the chat German bias, and I will see you in the next video.